to the Savage Nation. Today is going to be quite an experience for most of you who lived through the 60s. And only I can do it. I'm the only one in the American media with the historical knowledge, the perspective, and the, I have the ability to tell you the following story. So you heard the opening, didn't you? For the last 2 nights or so, I've been watching a movie on Showtime called the Baader Meinhoff group. And because I've known who they were, I've tried to tell you about them. I try to tell you that many of the people in the Obama administration, particularly the czars, they're the most obvious, are children of the Baader Meinhoff Red Army faction philosophy, which stems from the Marcuse school. I can trace it even further back than that. Many of you heard about Alinsky, so you know a little bit about it, and you know Bill Ayers, that name rings a bell, street radical from Chicago, lifetime friend of Obama. You know about all of these connections, but you don't know where they came from and where they're going and where we are now. What I'm going to tell you today is that Obama is a child not only of the 60s in a philosophical sense, but he's very much a child of the Baader Meinhoff or Frankfurt School or the Marcuse School of Revolution, which is you don't have to do it violently, you can do it from within. So welcome to the Savage Nation. We are actually living through a cultural and social revolution in the United States of America, let alone not solely the economic revolution that Obama is trying to conduct upon the heads of the American people. You know that he's conducting an economic revolution where he's taking from the middle to give to the rich. He's trying to shrink the middle class, knowingly doing so in the minds of many, in order to create a two-class society, not a three-class society. The two-class society was typical of the older order of the Soviet states, perhaps not so much today with the third way kind of socialist states that we see that have emerged in Russia and in China. But nevertheless, the old model of the two-class society, the ruling elite, the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats, and the workers. The middle class, of course, has always been the definition of the United States of America. The thing that made us special was the large middle class, most of whom listens to this show. This show is a middle-class show, make no mistake about it. And so I have to go back with you, please. You're going to have to indulge me, because to me, unless you know where we have come from, you'll not really understand where Obama wants to drag this country. Many of you have got an inkling of who he is. Many of you have an inkling of what he's trying to do with the health care, but you don't really understand the bigger picture. And what you really don't understand is that this is only one step of a long march through the United States of America. And I pointedly use the phrase the Long March, because that was the phrase used by Mao Zedong, the mass murderer who killed 60 million Chinese in his own country, making over the communist nation into a communist state. Many of the ideals and the goals and the tactics of Mao Zedong are actually being practiced right now by Barack Hussein Obama, short of the violence. Now, I have to reiterate that this is not happening in a vacuum. When you see the Democrat Party melting down in front of your eyes, they know that 65% of the American people do not want government medicine. 65% of the American people, even Democrats, have said, no, we don't want it. It's going to be more expensive, less care. It's going to be intrusive. We don't want it. And yet Barack Hussein Obama will wreck the Democrat Party to push this one piece of legislation forward. And there's a reason for it. It's because Obama's not truly a Democrat. Obama is truly a Marxist socialist rather than a Democrat. So he doesn't care what happens to the Democrat Party. He is answering to a higher power, an international power. He's answering, in essence, to Reverend Wright. He's answering to the sugar plum fairies that dance in his head, the sugar plum fairies known as Mao Zedong, Karl Marx, Engels. Shall I go down the list? Because I will over today and tomorrow. And so, again, I take you back in time to the Baader Meinhoff gang in Germany in the 70s. You don't have to actually know who Baader was or who Meinhoff was to understand what I'm about to tell you. I'll just tell you in short, the Baader Meinhoff gang was a radical left-wing group of machine gunners and bombers who attacked the middle class, kidnapped, all in the name of peace, justice, and love. Now, they supported the Arab cause. They hated Jews in Israel. They claimed they hated Zionism, not Jews, but of course they hated Jews and Zionism, being the grandchildren or the children of Nazis. They really didn't fall far from the tree. And the Obama Baader Meinhoff connection is what I want to talk about today. So that when we talk about the health care bill, which is going to come up over and over again, you have to understand how this connects to the radicals going back to the Baader Meinhoff gang, who were influenced by the writings of Mao Zedong and the philosophers associated with what is called the Frankfurt School and Marxist philosophers such as Herbert Marcuse. Now, many of you have heard of Saul Alinsky and Bill Ayers, but you may not have heard of Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse was the founder of the Frankfurt School of Marxist theory. And one of the main ideas of the Frankfurt School was that instead of outright revolution and social disruption, the left would allow society to continue providing goods and services and to defend the nation, while they, the left-wing intellectuals, would take charge of education, manipulate the public with media propaganda, corrupt morality through the entertainment industry, and infiltrate government bureaucracy at all levels. Does it sound familiar? This is exactly what Barack Obama has succeeded in doing. So we are talking about Obama's quiet cultural revolution, not a violent revolution of the type envisioned by the radical murderers in the Baader Meinhoff gang, who used the pretext of the Vietnam War and Israel's existence to justify any kind of murder, kidnapping, and slaughter. They used it as a pretext for anything they wanted to do because they were justified. The righteous indignation of the radical left is well known. And so to further advance their quiet revolution, the Marcuse School recommended the following, and let me read it to you. 1, the creation of racism offenses. In other words, whenever something occurred, scream racism. 2, continual change in the country to create confusion. Teach sex and homosexuality to children wherever you can. 4, undermine schools and teachers' authority. 5, flood the country with immigrants to destroy the identity of the country. 6, promote excessive drinking and drug usage. 7, empty the churches out. 8, create an unreliable legal system with a bias against the victims of crime. Does that sound familiar to you? We have now an unreliable legal system with a bias against the actual victims of crime and a bias towards terrorists, a bias towards murderers, a bias towards illegal aliens. Make the people dependent on the state for state benefits. 10, control and dumb down the media. And 11, encourage the breakdown of the family. And so I think the best thing for me to do right now would be to play a little hippie music from the 60s and then take a call or two. Give me some hard hippie music of the 60s.
The Constitution, well, you know, we all want to change your head. You tell me it's the institution.
Okay, so you get the picture. So even the Beatles were singing songs about revolution, encouraging the youth to drop the mores of the middle class, to overthrow their parents' strictures, to tell everyone that they were free and liberated and they were going to, bring about a new order, a new society. And what they don't understand is they actually have brought about a new order and a new society. And who's sitting here listening to the show could say it's a better order and a better society than the one that your parents had? I'd like to know anyone listening to the show tells me you're living in a safer world, a cleaner world, a more moral world, because it just is not true. Let's go to the callers. WOR, Mike, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Mike, I think that we need to look no further. If you want to look at the groundwork that was laid for Obama, we don't need to look any further than his mother. This woman, I believe, is laughing all the way from her grave right now.
Well, I know it's considered impolite to talk about the deceased or the mother of a president, but let's do it because we can do it in a dignified fashion, almost in a clinical fashion, because I actually did it over a year ago when I wrote Obama Has a Woman Problem. And it goes back to his mother abandoning him on a repeated basis, leaving him with the grandparents. Is that sort of what you're implying in part?
Yes. I also believe that, he has stated many times that she was a very, very, prominent figure in his life, as all mothers are, except our mothers, your mother and my mother. We were raised to love this country, and she raised him with a different belief.
Yes, that's correct. We don't know exactly what she taught him, but we know by her actions that she disdained bourgeois mores. She had contempt for America. She seemed always to be attracted to third world men and married two of them, as a matter of fact, one a Kenyan and then another an Indonesian. I believe both of them were Muslims, if I'm not mistaken. That's very interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Why would his mother have married two Muslim men? Does anyone have an answer to that? And why did she have a man's first name? Did anyone ever analyze that? Do you know what her first name was? It was a boy's name. Did you know that?
Yeah, Stanley.
Stanley. Now, who would name their daughter Stanley? Can anyone explain why that was done? I mean, there's so much here for a sociologist who's fair-minded, not one of the whack jobs in the universities today, that we have to delve into. Because if you don't understand where this man's mindset is coming from, I don't think you understand the danger we're actually in. And, Mike, I think that I'm on to the right course here. I think people need to know the danger we're in, and I thank you for calling.